ARMA 4 has been confirmed to be in development by Bohemia Interactive. Today I'm going to talk about ARMA 4 and specifically the gameplay features and improvements. I have been playing ARMA since 2011 and I have been following the franchise closely. I know its flaws and I know its strengths. ARMA is a special type of game and there's a million ways to interact with it, so the gameplay improvements I'm going to predict there is based on my experience over many years. I want to toss out a disclaimer that I have a friendly relationship to developers at BI, but none of the information I'm sharing here today is coming from BI themselves. This is my calculated assumptions based on all of the information that's publicly out there. I have done one of these videos before where I talked about the Infusion engine and ARMA Reforger, and I was more or less spot on back then. Only time will tell if I get anything right with this one, but more on that in a minute. I would love to discuss ARMA 4 with you guys and the ideas you might have in the comments. If you enjoy the content, you should consider subscribing and leaving a like on the video, or maybe become a member. Now let's begin with how I'm going to categorize this. I will talk about general improvements. This is stuff like graphics and performance. Then I will talk about expected gameplay features, and lastly overall game support. If you are more interested in one thing over the other, I have left some timestamps for you in the description. You're welcome. Alright, let's begin with the general improvements. ARMA 4 will be on the new Infusion engine. This means it will have better performance and cross-platform capabilities. It will have better visual fidelity and higher texture quality. It will of course have volumetric fog, better vegetation draw distance and an improved lighting system. We can see some of these improvements already with ARMA Reforger, but I think the best stuff is hidden and will be coming with ARMA 4, so with that in mind, something like an ARMA Reforger Plus. I believe ARMA 4 will be set in the current or modern theater of war. Next up is destruction. I think ARMA 4 will have a lot of destructible objects. I think it will be focused on installations like bridges, radars, communication towers, walls and fences. This ties in with the planned features for ARMA Reforger that I will talk more about soon. Furthermore, the movement system will be improved and be much more in line with ARMA Reforger. This means that in ARMA 4 you can jump, vault and climb obstacles, as well as have the adjustable stances that we know and love from ARMA 3. I think ARMA 4 will continue to have Arsenal, but it will have improvements that include filtering items and a variation selector instead of having each camouflage listed as its own item. I'm pretty sure ARMA 4 will come with integrated map tools that has meaningful purpose, so not only a compass but probably an MGRS coordinate tool and a protractor. This has already been added to ARMA Reforger with the 096 update. And by popular request there will be a proper editor and a SUS at launch. Bohemia cannot really afford to release ARMA 4 without this, and I think they know that. It may be a bit basic in the beginning, however down the line I think it will be better than Eden. The new engine kinda makes it hard to predict what will be ready at launch. And lastly on the topic for general, I believe ARMA 4 will be on Xbox and PS4. That itself is controversial, I know. But what does that actually mean for us PC players? It's hard to say. Will it affect the game design and features? Yes, probably, but not necessarily in a negative way. Some side effects might actually be positive. Now let's talk about the features. I believe ARMA 4 will implement proper logistics. This means supplies will play a bigger factor in multiplayer game modes. Ammo, gear, explosives, gun crates and fuel. All that should be manageable and it should be a gameplay element in itself. This is logical, no pun intended, step for ARMA to take. Logistics is a crucial part of warfare and it makes for a deeper gameplay experience. This means we will see dedicated vehicles with appropriate functions like fuel trucks, ambulances, command vehicles and much more. Logistics and supplies together with base building will make the battlefields of multiplayer ARMA much more dynamic. I also believe having support for this will create new interesting game mechanics for developers and mod makers. Another big feature will be the medical system improvement, because logistics play a larger role, so will patient handling and medical treatment. Not to an extreme degree, but in line with what we can see in modded ARMA 3 with the ACE medical system. Treating individual body parts is already a planned feature for ARMA Reforger, so I think a system is planned for ARMA 4. The last gameplay feature I briefly mentioned is building. In ARMA Reforger you can already build smaller constructions like checkpoints and supply depots. With ARMA 4 I think it will be expanded and improved upon with more variation. It would be cool to have the ability to construct compositions that the community has made. Imagine that in something like an ARMA 4 DayZ mod for instance. But I won't get ahead of myself, let's keep moving on to infrastructure. Bohemia has teased us with a fully functional electric grid in the ARMA Reforger roadmap. This made me think that ARMA 4 will emphasize the importance of infrastructure and the meaning it has in warfare. Having electricity as a gameplay feature opens up a ton of possibilities. Think about it, it opens up sabotage missions, stealth missions become a lot more fun, electricity becomes something you need to supply your base with and therefore something you should protect. You could even cut power to a town or to a house before moving in with your forces. So many possibilities open up with this gameplay feature. Airports, for instance, could have proper functionality with simulated refueling, rearming and repairing of rotary and fixed-wing aircraft. Continuing with infrastructure, that brings me over to communication. Communication on the battlefield is integral to gameplay, and I think ARMA 4 will have integrated radio features like we see in ARMA Reforger. This means no TeamSpeak or third-party apps. This also means radio towers play a big part in gameplay, relay stations and command vehicles will become important, and short and long frequencies can be simulated. Having destructible radio towers as a part of infrastructure is then logical and in line with what I predicted earlier. The last gameplay feature I'm predicting, and the biggest thing Bohemia has never touched upon with any ARMA game, is electronic warfare. The purpose of electronic warfare is to deny the enemy the advantage of the electromagnetic spectrum. EV can be applied from air, sea or land by players or drones, and it can target communications, radar facilities or other military or civilian assets. This could be actions like jamming the radio or cell frequencies or triangulation of enemy forces. We saw a glimpse of this with the Contact DLC for ARMA 3, where you could misdirect the enemy AI patrols and jam certain drones. I think it will play a much larger role in ARMA 4. We've already seen Bohemia Interactive walk away from the Steam workshop. The workshop for ARMA Reforger is in-game and online through a web browser. The obvious upgrade with this is that you can manage mods without exiting and re-entering the game. That is a time save for you and me, and it's easier to manage. In the current iteration it's still a bit rough around the edges, but by the time ARMA 4 comes out it will probably function well enough for you to not really notice. I'm of course predicting there will be better server management tools and a reworked online units page for squads and clans to manage members and their squad XMLs. Modding support is of course improved a lot with documentation and samples from modders and content creators. And there will be a creator DLC program, or a CDLC program, from the very beginning of ARMA 4. And there you have it. Those were my predictions for ARMA 4. Now tell me what you think. I would love to talk anything ARMA 4 with you, and hopefully ARMA 4 will be here in a couple of years. So until then, let's continue down the road and see what BI reveals. Consider subscribing and leaving a like on the video. It does help me out. That's all from me to you. Stay safe.